Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to see you all again here today at our Idea Networking sessions. We are in March 2026. My name is Sharon Chaden Burks. I am a senior instructional designer at Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. Love what I do, and I'm happy to share my love of e-learning and ID with you. And today I have two guest speakers, one, a returning guest speaker, Kevin Wheeler, and a new guest speaker, Miriam Elnaggar. And so please, as they're speaking, write down your questions. You'll have time to chat with them in breakout rooms. And a little bit later, I have a presentation I gave lately that I'm happy to share with you on how I've been using AI lately. Miriam, would you like to go first?
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam, and I'm really excited to be here. I've been a fan of the idea networking space for a while. With the time difference, because I'm based in Egypt, I don't always get to join, but I'm really excited to be here and talk about my experience. For a little bit of context, I was in the classroom for about 10, 11 years. I had two teaching degrees and a master's in education when I decided to leave. And at the time, I was living in Indonesia and it was COVID. So it's a long story, but I was in a beautiful setup at the time where I was homeschooling a small group of kids out of the mountains outside Jakarta, the capital. And it was a very fluid, interesting experience. And that's when I realized that there was so much I wanted to do with education and working with children outside the typical classroom setup. And I ended up using that time and COVID as an opportunity to transition fully out of the classroom. And since then, I've been lucky enough to have some interesting roles that still had me designing educational material. And that's included things like teacher trainings, especially in tech, interactive workshops for kids on a variety of subjects, including game design and storytelling. I've worked on educational kids apps, and I've run in-person and online workshops. More recently, my work has been more adult focused. I personally prefer working in a kid space, but it seems like the work that I do or find has been more adult focused. So that includes collaborating with subject matter experts to create courses or online content for universities or for online courses. I've created a bunch of online self-guided courses as well. I've learned to do video tutorials on YouTube. And I've created quite a few knowledge bases for customers or customer service representatives, and I've trained trainers. And I've done this across working full-time for startups or working part-time with them on a retainer or taking on freelance projects as they come up. Um, Sometimes all at the same time, which is a little stressful, but I love the variety. And a lot of the work that I did originally when I first left the classroom, I guess the first 2 to 3 years, had me working still with schools and teachers and students directly. Because my work at the moment is more adult focused, I've gone into, I wouldn't say I've gone back into the classroom, but I am back to subbing in a school part-time because I like to keep my skills sharp. I think if I want to be working with students and teachers, then I always need to remember what it feels like being in the classroom because when I was in the classroom, it would feel like people were always telling me what to do, and they had been out of the classroom so long and they'd lost the sense of what it felt like. So my work includes a day for me might include a lot of conversations with subject matter experts to understand their needs and to get a general idea of their content. I like to tell people that I am about to work with that my expertise is in taking the learning content taking their content and their knowledge and turning it into a learning experience or learning material. So I don't necessarily try to learn the information they're giving me so I can switch between working with them and thinking of things from the learner's perspective. Um, there's a lot of feedbacking, so I might work on smaller bits of material or um, of whatever it is that I'm working on, and then going back to the experts and checking for accuracy. There's a lot of waiting around or sometimes chasing people to for materials or to confirm that the information is correct. And there's also a lot of sitting around and trying to think about things. Um, but it's been an interesting experience because it's meant that I've worked on and I've learned so much about things from media buying, which is a marketing term I didn't even know until 3, 4 months ago, to working on creating social emotional learning game design workshops for kids. So I've learned a little bit of everything along the way, and it keeps my work pretty interesting. Um, I think whenever I reflect on my biggest adjustment moving out of the classroom, I think the most valuable thing for me was shifting my focus from teaching to thinking about the learner first. And I like to think about it in terms of learning versus teaching. So when I think about my learners first versus what I need to teach because when I was in the classroom, a lot of the time, even though obviously my learner was the priority, I would always be trying to figure out, trying to think about what I need to cover. Like these are all the things I need to teach, and this is what I need to do. And so that would end up being my main focus. So it's been great to shift the focus to my learner. So a lot of the time, because of the variety of things that I might work on, I ask myself how I want my learner to feel by the end, or what do I want them to learn, rather than focusing on all the things, the checkbox of things I need to get done because admin said I had to do it. Um, it's it's also been interesting to focus on learning materials or training materials. That's been straightforward enough, but there's always more angles to think about. There are more stakeholders, I suppose. So there might be things my employers want me to focus on, or the marketing angle, or keeping the company focused, or um, having a specific messaging because I want to focus on the learner and they might have a different, I don't want to say agenda, but they have a different perspective. Um, Working with people also from different backgrounds has been a big part of my work because in almost every team I've worked in or every freelance project, I am the only person who has any kind of educational background, including when I've worked in educational startups or educational settings. So it's really important to ex to stand my ground in some ways, but it's also brought great perspectives and angles to the work that I do. And so I've worked with people who say are artists or game designers or people who are very, very sales oriented. And it can be an interesting challenge for me to work with people who think so differently because having worked in the classroom, I have a very specific way I want to go about my educational content, and they just don't care about that. But 9 out of 10 times, that results in a really interesting learning experience at the end for my learners. And it's always, I guess, fun to be challenged and see new ways that I can think about things and have more perspectives. Um, and this is also interesting to notice when I do end up working with people who come from a pure instructional design background, and don't, rather than a teaching background like I do, we take some time to figure out the direction we want to work in together, and we want to come in from different angles. So I've designed, for example, teacher trainings, and I've worked with people from different backgrounds in that sense, and we come up with something that's beautifully balanced at the end of the day because we're all coming in from different perspectives. But I definitely think that having a background as a teacher has really given me an edge because as a former teacher or as a teacher, we're used to multitasking and project management and creative thinking and pulling a play together out of nowhere and quickly learning new skills. And when we're in a school and every person in the building is able to do the same thing, sometimes we lose perspective on how important and special it is that we can do all these things. And when I went out of that and suddenly became this one person who could plug into anything, it made me a very valuable hire. And actually, one company that's kept me on a retainer for the last couple of years, and they're actually a marketing software automation startup, so has nothing to do with the work that I do. They've had me hired specifically because of my ability to plug into different things and work across different departments and teams, not just the educational content that I can provide for them. Um, and it keeps the work that I do very interesting. Um, Job search has been pretty interesting as well. Networking has been my biggest my biggest help. So if someone knows someone or can recommend something, that's been really, really valuable. Um, when I'm job hunting, which I continuously need to do because I am in a space where I would like to freelance, but I would also love to work full time if I find something that's interesting enough and pays well enough. I need to be very careful reading titles and reading descriptions because it may not always sound like a job I would do. Like this role that I've been hired in part-time. My role is technically called an academy manager, which isn't something I would have ever thought to really look into because I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to manage an academy, but actually what I do is very hands-on and related to my work. And it can be really tricky asking for my worth financially because a lot of people view my job as well easy or a good to have, or they just don't want to pay for it. So they love the expertise, but they want it for free. And a lot of interesting jobs don't want to hire internationally. So that's been quite the ongoing journey. I'm just very aware of time. So I guess, Sharon, should I stop or should I keep going or save it for the breakout rooms?
Yeah, we can pause and save for the breakout room. Before I go to Kevin, I'll just follow up that I really loved what you were saying about being the education expert. Because a lot of positions when you're in ID, you join a group of people that do not all share the same assumptions about learning. And so you find yourself in the conversation where, oh, I have to explain to you why we can't just dump everything on them and expect them to get it all. So you kind of have to go, you become like very aware that your toolkit is important and you have to explain it in a way that other people are going to get, I guess, to get them on your side.
Yeah, I
All right,
agree. I
Kevin. Sorry, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
No, I was going to reiterate what you said that usually I just, in the first conversation, I will tell them, this is what I can do, this is what you can expect from me, and this is where you come in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kevin, it is all yours.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Kevin. I am based in Southern California, and I was also in education for about a decade, give or take, in many different roles. I taught it in high school and middle school both, as well. I taught history primarily. That's what my degree was in, but I also taught English. I had dual credentials, and I had master's degree, the whole 9 yards that most of us did. But over time in the classroom, things just took a shift. I think we've all been seeing that in education, that as teachers, we went in because we were altruistic. We wanted to make a difference. We wanted to give kids the experiences that we never had. But at least in my experiences, it's been hard, and teachers have been, devalued in a lot of ways in the last 10 years, and especially since COVID. And I think COVID was a wake-up call to a lot of teachers. That's why, in 2020, we started having the mass teacher exodus. I know roughly 2+ million of us have quit now in the last 6 years and fought to find other jobs. Instructional design was where I ended up finding my home. I left in 2022, so actually next month will be 4 years since I left the classroom. And in that time, I've had a number of different ID roles, and it's been a wild west a bit because the ID job market isn't fantastic right now. It's better, it's gotten better in the last few months actually, but there was a stint there where it was been really, really hard. But when I left education, I wasn't just looking for my next forever career, because we all went in expecting teaching to be our forever career when that's not normal in the corporate world. You expect to move around. You expect to find new jobs that interest you, that make you want to grow professionally and personally. And you're not going to find that right away. And you might find it for a while and need to leave and find it again someplace else. And when I left teaching, I had a lot of mental health issues. I needed a lot of therapy and a lot of things to deal with the trauma I had from the classroom. And that made me very, very interested in mental health and by extension, physical health after I started having some physical health issues as well. And over time, I've not only gravitated toward making courses for as an instructional designer, but also helping those with disabilities and helping those with accessibility issues. That's become my niche in the niche. And in my time, yes, I started out making actually trainings for teachers when I left the classroom. But then after that, I started finding bigger roles in more corporate functions. I actually worked as a ID with a autonomous vehicle company for about a year, but specifically again helping riders in our autonomous vehicles who had accessibility issues, who were deaf, who were blind, etc. And which ultimately led to me to my current role, which I've now been in for about a year and a half. I worked at a company called Hanger, which is a prosthetic and orthotic company. So people who've lost limbs in accidents or for surgeries, massive advocate of that now. And I also run a YouTube channel where I talk about transitioning teacher issues, instructional design topics, and general career advice. I've been doing that now for probably about 3 years, and that's been rewarding too. So my not only my niche of a niche with what I'm doing, but I'm a video editing ID as well. So that's kind of been where I've focused my energies most, and that's where I continue to really do my best to grow and to help others. And I find that very rewarding. It's kind of become this next natural phase of what I wanted to do as a teacher, that I wanted to help people. I wanted to give them opportunities to grow. And now I'm doing that for adults and even more for people who struggle and aren't represented in our communities as well as they should be, or don't get as much notice as they should. And that's been very rewarding. It's been very heartwarming for me. So it's served as a kind of like a surrogate teacher position for me. And that's kind of where I've been for just about 4 years now. And I really do my best to help people transition out of teaching because I know what it was like. I know how hard it was. I know how isolating teaching can be sometimes. And people need to know that they aren't alone. And that's why I dedicate so much of my time to making those videos, doing coffee chats, doing these kinds of events for people to help them find out resources to get out of the classroom and to become instructional designers or go into whatever job they want to become. Teachers go into a lot of different positions. ID is just one of the many. And I think that's a good little intro to my background, at least.
I really like what you said about aligning your values with your job search because I think when we first are just trying to get out of teaching and get into something else, we're like, well, I don't care, just whatever you got. But and maybe that's the first job, but I do think that there is a lot of benefit in looking at job descriptions and figuring out what is it that I really want to do during the day. Because we all only have one life to live, and we spend a lot of hours in the day doing work. So you might as well choose something that doesn't uh, suck your soul, you know? Okay, let's pause here for a minute. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I want to tell you before we get into our Q&A that our next session is going to be Tuesday, April 7th from 7 to 8 p.m. And you are welcome to go ahead and get registered for that. The registration link is right there if you want to go ahead and get it on your calendar. I also want to share the feedback form for this session. Let me know what you think. And last thing I want to share with you, I recently gave a presentation. Um, what was this for? I think we had an AI learning day at my institution, and I made this presentation intended for instructors. It's about one way that I've been using AI in creating online education in higher ed. This is AI powered brain dumps. So there is a way to do this without AI. It combines the idea of getting students to write down everything they remember about a topic at the end of a module to help them retrieve the
Mm.
information while it's fresh so that it strengthens that neural pathway. But the second part of it is you grab all those student responses to a brain dump at the end of the module, and then you put it in Chat GPT with a prompt to analyze what all the students said so you can more quickly identify gaps in what students are understanding. And if you create this as a project within Chat GPT, you can go back to that project over and over again throughout the course of a semester and continue to add all these responses from your students in order to um, do kind of like a cumulative assessment of students and say, okay, it's midterm time. What do my students need the most help with? And it can really tweak your instruction and, like Suzanne was saying, close that feedback loop so you can improve your instruction. So feel free to check that out. And now I'm going to open it up for Q&A. What are questions out there? Oh, I also had one more thing. Um, this is something I built using Canva AI and then putting that code into Articulate Rise. We needed a needs assessment to help faculty who are preparing to use Canvas to understand the process of blueprinting, which is, in summary, pushing content from a master course slash called Blueprint in Canvas into an associated teaching shell. So this guides faculty through a couple questions to recommend one of three trainings that we are going to offer. We needed a quick way to find out what faculty needed so that we could funnel them to the right training. So I'm going to answer a few questions. Um, And then at the end, it recommends a training and it compares it with the other trainings possible. They can do it a number of times and they're like, I changed my mind. Actually, this time I want different content. I want one blueprint. I'm going to control the dates. And now I get a different outcome. So that was something I built in Canva AI and put in Articulate Rise. And now we have a quick needs assessment that faculty can use to find the right training that we're going to be offering. Okay, now back to your questions. Any questions for Neil?
Um, Kevin, I imagine I could find this looking for it, but can you post the link to your YouTube channel?
Sharon,
Yes.
do you teach any instructional design classes here in the Dayton area at Sinclair?
No, once upon a time, before we started migrating in LMS, there was talk about creating an ID certificate at
Mm-hmm.
Sinclair, and we got real excited. And then, like Sinclair decided to move to a new LMS, and now that is all we have been doing since, I don't know, last July. So
Yeah, I was going to take more advantage of you, perhaps here locally, if I could, but I can't. So that's
no, not right now, unfortunately. You'll have to look for someone equally smart. I know that will be hard. Ha 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 ha.
well, I'm sorry I strained your brain there for about 20 minutes, but you were very helpful. So I do
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I survived somehow. Any other questions? Or if no questions, Miriam and Kevin, were there any tidbits you wanted to share with the whole group?
You're not alone. It's very easy to remember that, or forget that actually, that, it, why did my webcam having a moment today? Jeez Louise.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I said that 3 times now. Anyway, uh, that's what these networking sessions are for. And in our breakout room, we had that a lot. We're like, well, how do I even do this? Or what, how do you do this? Like, we're here for that. Like, a lot of the ID community is vast, and a lot of career transitioners have moved into it. So as a result, there's a lot of us who can answer this question. We've all gone through what you're going through right now.
Mhm.
So don't forget that you aren't alone, that you can always ping us on LinkedIn or watch our videos, watch anything like that. We all are able and willing to help you.
Thank you.
That actually resonates with what I would have said. I find that it can be a very alienating experience sometimes because as a teacher, I was used to just popping into whichever room I could see and have a conversation about whatever, and someone would be able to plug in and help me with what I was thinking about. And that's not always the case with the work that I do now because I'm usually the only person in whatever context I'm working in who can do what I do. And I know very few other individuals who have that, who do the same work. So I think international communities or online communities like this one or like the few others that I've found that I'm a part of are so important for my mental well-being and feeling supported and also like for professional development. Like when I talk to other people about what they're doing or when I learn from other people who are in this line of work, it's so valuable. So find a community and whoever I've reached out to on LinkedIn or if someone's reached out to me, everyone's really happy to help.
That's okay. We end a little bit early. Thank you guys for being here. I look forward to seeing you all back here in April. Wanted to mention that we will not meet in May because I'm taking a vacation that first week of May. So, yay! I know I love vacation. Vacation's so wonderful. So if you're marking, looking ahead in May, we will not meet, but we will meet, I'm pretty sure throughout the whole summer. I don't think I'll be gone the first week of any month in the summer. So I think, yeah, I think that's right. Okay. Thank you, Kevin and Miriam, for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your time and expertise. And it always does so much when people give back and just say, I'm here to answer questions when you're job searching. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys next time we meet. Have a great night, everyone.